Um, my name is Evangeline Naredo, and I'm working as a school district nurse for San Francisco Unified School District. My father is a World War II veteran, and so when I was 16, my family just told us that, my father got this benefit that World War II veterans, I think he's specifically USAFE, and so he was part of this group of Filipinos who could become U.S. citizens while in the Philippines. And so he became a U.S. citizen while he was still in the Philippines. And then he was able to petition my mom and me and my younger sister. And so that was our opportunity to come to the United States. And in 1995, after I graduated from high school, so we made that big migration to United States. And we settled in Santa Clara, Silicon Valley, because my mom has relatives there. And as we know with the chain migration, you gotta have your support group, and that's where we have our support group. So I spent, my teenage years in Santa Clara, and I also attended San Jose State University, because I already had my high school diploma in the Philippines. I attended one more year of high school here because I was still, I think, underage to attend college, because in the Philippines, I think we finished when you're 16 years old, and I think here it's 18. So I attended one more year of high school, which was great because it kind of just gave me a soft intro of being a student here in the United States, and to kind of get that, comparison of how it is to be a teenager in the Philippines and in the United States before going into this kind of like a young adult college life experience. Due to my limitation and also our family orientation, so pretty much at that time, my father, given that he's a World War II veteran, he's already 82 years old at that time. And then my mom, she was 55 years old. It's like modern family for Filipinos. And then my sister and I, we were in our teens. So pretty much my dad could not work. It was really kind of his last effort to really give me and my sister, the future. Because he knows for his age, he's going to go. And this is his last attempt. And of course, for my mom, at the age of 55, that was really also a big challenge for her to come to this new country. At the age of 55, she pretty much took over being the breadwinner of our family. And as a young adult, I kind of became her kind of like a default partner. So because of that kind of dynamics in our family, I still wanted to pursue higher education. So I was actually already in the Philippines, slated to attend University of the Philippines, Los Baños. So that was really a highlight of, and something that I was very sad about to leave behind, because for graduating high schools in the Philippines, that's really like something you look forward to. You take the UPCAT, and it's like this group of students with supposedly bright future, right? So I had to leave that behind. I took a deferment with the UP Los Baños with maybe the intention to return after 1 year of coming to America. I think it was part of our visa that we had to enter the United States. So came here, and then went back to high school, and of course, the likelihood of me returning just became like very slim, because my dad had to stay here because of his health too. So when it was decided that we're gonna stay here, I was in my course to continue on to higher education. So I applied to a couple of schools in the South Bay. So I had the option to apply to University of Santa Clara and San Jose State. Those were the local universities. I got into both. And this is the time when I was still navigating, education system here in the United States. I think I got accepted to both, but University of Santa Clara asked me to have $400 to reserve my spot. And at that time, $400 was a lot. I remember I was working at McDonald's and I still have my paycheck, and I think I was making like $4 per hour. So 400 is a lot of hours, right? So I got into San Jose State, and so I pretty much pursued a course in biology there. And so it took me a long time to finish my school, I think 6 years. Looking back, I felt like, I just moved to America. It's like it was the most comfortable environment for me. I was surrounded with safe people, and I was having fun. I took a lot of classes. I even did a study abroad in London and traveled through Europe while in college. So, and of course, when you take a time like that, it's just have to extend for 1 more year. So that was really a safe space for me. I met a lot of people, got into a lot of community outreach, leadership, and those were already the things that I was doing in the Philippines. So I was very excited to find that same niche in the United States, here in San Jose, California. So at that time, during my study abroad, that's when I met my husband. No, actually, I already met him at Great America. He was, everybody worked at Great America in Santa Clara, right, for a seasonal job. And so we met each other at Great America. He was an exchange student from Finland. He was doing a cultural exchange program, which was part of their college program. And that's where we met. So I was very excited. I have a friend from, Europe, right? So when I did my study abroad in London, that's when I realized that this is before, what was that? Like internet calling. So everything was like calling cards. So at that time, I realized that when you're in London, it's much cheaper to call region, like Europe as a region, than my friends in California. So, and when you're doing study abroad in another foreign place, you needed to just talk to another person, just to kind of unload, right? And so he was the easiest person for me to call. At that time, that was actually my first time to go on a plane again, after flying to United States, and then years later, moving on to another bigger place like Europe, London, bigger city. So I was very excited to have at least a friend that I could call. And, he turned out to be a really nice person. And so we ended up being together, ended up being married. And, we were young, married, and after I graduated from San Jose State, we wanted to live in a bigger city. In the Philippines, I spent most of I grew up in Quezon City, so Metro Manila. I think I could call myself a city girl. So I said San Francisco, San Jose, even though it's a big city, it doesn't have that same, energy. So I moved here. We actually lived here in South of Market. I think we rented here in Folsom and 3rd Street. Really nice, very centrally located. So that was the start of me coming to San Francisco. And I didn't even know about South of Market as a district. But of course, as I slowly explored this area, it's not too far to wander off 5th Street, and then all of these familiar Filipino stores, and then, that just got me curious about, what is this, I've heard of Daly City, but I don't know about South of Market, right? But at that time, it was just me, and I guess I wasn't I got the curiosity, but I didn't get as much involved yet. I just thought of South of Market as just another gathering of a gathering for Filipinos that migrated here in the city. But I'm kind of just felt really, homey. I felt that way. And then we lived in different parts of San Francisco, moved to Nob Hill, and this is because of, rental increase. I think probably my first taste of what this South of Market was really about is when I was living here. I volunteered in the adult daycare center here on Folsom, and that's already the area where they have the Filipino streets, like Rizal, Bonifacio, Lapu-Lapu. So it just kind of gave me the sense that, this has a deeper history here. And also at the adult daycare center, I work with a lot of older Filipino seniors. I was a volunteer there. I was helping the art teacher with, activities. So I think it kind of stayed out like that way. And then I left South of Market. I moved to Nob Hill. And then a year after that, I moved to Mission. So that was the time when my husband and I started our family. So when my child was almost 2 years old, I wanted to go back and continue on to another career, and I felt like nursing just felt right to me. At that time, I was working with. I was volunteering in some of this community center in San Francisco, and that's when I got exposed to a lot of nurses, Filipino nurses, and got me curious about what is that field, but then at that time it was with the child. I think I already had a child at that time, and then also the cost of going back to school. I think this is a time when Schwarzenegger was in power, and I remember even the community college education went up so much. So the idea of just returning to school and now having a family, I think we just bought our house here in San Francisco. So there was just no room for us to an expense for me to take on, loans. And in addition to the school expenses, I have to now think of the childcare. So then the next best thing I could think of was maybe I'll go back to Philippines and go to school there. So I looked into that. I must have talked to a few people who have done something like that. And so I looked into that. I found a school in the Philippines, and that's when I got to know that there is this movement of second course for nursing. So these are courses. I think it also exists here in the United States, where if you are already a graduate of another degree, you could get a master's entry level in nursing. But all of those are very expensive. UCSF or Samuel Merritt, I don't know, in the 30,000s. I'm sure it's doable. But I think for somebody who does not have a whole loan, and then also for my husband who is coming from a country where education is free, we just don't have this orientation that we're going to take on loan. It's just not in our orientation. So we got to always find a way to make this affordable for us. And since I do have a good support group in the Philippines, we still have a place to stay in Manila, and I found a school there. I have a half-sister who could help me with childcare, and I think overall any kind of help there too is also much cheaper than here in the United States. So it just kind of made sense. So we made that decision to, I'm gonna go back to school in the Philippines for nursing, and I found a credible program for me to take finish my nursing courses, and at the same time, somebody could help me take care of my child. So I went back to Philippines with my just almost 2-year-old child. I think I started in April. I went there in February, and I started my nursing school in April of 2009. And actually, the schooling in the Philippines is much more rigorous. I think if I had done it here, even though it cost me money, it would probably shorter time. But overall, I'm very happy of my experience there. So I went back there, and at that time in the Philippines, since we already have this, child, I think we will already have this orientation that, okay, how are we going to raise this child to make sure, she's multicultural. She's, we call her Finay. She's part Finnish, part Filipino. So now we have this, responsibility of how we're going to raise this child. So to make sure that, just like me and my husband, we are very well connected to, our culture. We speak our language. So we also want to make sure that our children will have the same kind of experience. So while we were in the Philippines, we really made this effort to expose her to the Filipino language. And what I've noticed is that in the Philippines, there's also this big move for, to speak English. So it's interesting that in the Philippines, you actually hear Filipino. It's almost like a rare language that, you hear more English than Filipino. So I find myself really putting this effort to finding a preschool program for her where she can be exposed to Filipino. I didn't know it was going to be hard, but that was actually quite of an experience on its own to where is this, right? You would imagine it would just be, in our neighborhood, but a lot of the local preschools, their language of instruction is in English. And that's not really what, that's not aligned to what we want. So I found this program. I think it's a Waldorf inspired program. It's called, can't remember anymore, Mikael. And it's actually located in Rockwell, Makati. So I live in Quezon City, so it's probably like a 1 hour, cab ride for us. And I would take my child there, and everything was in Filipino. So from the moment she steps into the door, she's greeted in Filipino, and then their songs are in Filipino. I've learned then that Waldorf education, one of the core value they have is to teach students in their the local language. So everything was how they call things, they talk to them, they sing to them in Filipino. So that was very beautiful, aside from all the other things that's beautiful about the program. There's also like a parent support. They made sure that we were also busy doing something, and not just like chatting around when we're waiting for our child to finish the program. So that was very nice. In that program, I met a lot of Japanese expats who were living in that neighborhood, and there were also other Filipinos who kind of shared the same value that we do. I think prior to moving there, I was living in Mission District here in San Francisco. So there was this big movement about natural stuff, yoga, anything sustainable. So that's kind of like the same niche I found in this group of parents. I still keep in touch with the teacher and also one of the Japanese parent now, and I think their children have grown into that educational system. And then after that, I found another program, also Waldorf inspired, that's near my neighborhood. So the whole time that me and my child were in the Philippines while I was pursuing my nursing education, she maintained to be in a Filipino, language environment school. So it was really beautiful. And I think because she was just barely 2, I think her first language was really Filipino. Because, at home, I also told whoever was taking care of her, make sure, like, please, speak to her in Filipino. It's almost like I never thought I have to say that in the Philippines, but, everybody wanted to practice their English to her. And of course, at that time, she had picked up some accents and, stuff like that. So I think as a parent, if you're not really like informed about the importance of language, you could like, oh my God, my child parang, she kind of maybe like tanga siya or parang not very intelligible. She may get confused, all of these things that we worry about, like having, introducing many languages to a child. But, having a husband who's from a country that's, where they speak multiple languages. And also, as a Filipino who grew up in Manila and exposed to at least 3 languages, I may have some kind of confusion here and there, but I felt like I grew up okay. So I spent 3 years in the Philippines. So after I graduated, I got my license in the Philippines. My board exam, that was one of the last things I did. And that was also quite a surprise because I made it to the top 10. That's kind of like big in the Philippines. So, they post your photos everywhere, kind of like promote which review center produced like the top notchers. So that was quite a surprise for me to have. I don't have the intention at that time to practice in the Philippines, but one of my mentors, Dr. Annabel Borromeo, she told me like, just take the board. I mean, you got this, the material. And I also reviewed because it was also a review for for the test here in the United States. If the nursing education was really brought by United States to the Philippines, so a lot of our curriculum is really based on what we have here. So I figured whatever I learned there, it's going to be something I can transfer here. So I reviewed for that, and with her encouragement, I took the licensure, and that was a surprise. And I told her it was really nice to have that kind of background because it really, I felt like, it kind of showed to me that I really love this material, the nursing. It's something I took after already graduating from a degree here in the United States. But I felt that after I graduated and actually passed the board, like this is something the field that I would really enjoy. And having that kind of background kind of puts me around people who, would really lead this, profession. And so I came back to the United States, and so now I'm a nurse, but here in the United States, I'm considered as a foreign graduate nurse. Even though I'm here, I've lived, quite a few years of my life by then. And then now I have this young child. She was 5 years old when we came back here, and she's ready to go continue on to her school. And so again, we were also very mindful, like, okay, how can we maintain this desire for her to have, this deep connection to her Filipino heritage. And so I remember the South of Market, right? That, we first lived in San Francisco. And then in navigating the public school system, we found this beautiful program. There is a bilingual Filipino pathway. And it looks like at that time there were already 2 of them. One here at Bessie Carmichael Filipino Education Center, located in South of Market. And there's another one too in Longfellow. But logistically, it made more sense for us to send her to Bessie Carmichael because my husband also works in the financial district. And it's much closer to Mission District too. So that was our, our introduction again to this neighborhood. And so she attended there 2012, and she finished, we enrolled her in the Filipino language program, and she finished until she was eighth grade. So I think that's maybe like 9 years that she actually stayed there. And when we had our second child, we just followed, enrolled our second child there to also follow the same, education. I think being also ourselves, immigrant to this country, we came here when, like, I was much younger when he came here. I felt like growing up as a young adult, I felt like knowing who I was, because I was really just in the verge of, I already had my formative years. And in knowing who I was, I felt that really provided a kind of like a strong, it really grounded me as I was, getting to know myself as a young adult here in the United States. I remember when I was in college, I was already in that kind of like a group of people when we were told, like, embrace who you are, I know we want you to, assimilate, but of course I had my accent then. Maybe I wasn't as proficient in English, so I, made some of that mistakes. But I felt like, you have to embrace that. And one of the things that I also did at that time that I think really made me really embrace my being a bicultural and also bilingual person in the United States was I volunteered as a translator at Stanford Hospital. And at that time, I realized how much language is very important to human beings. One of the things I remember there is that when you're sick and really, very like at your weakest situation, you refer back to your mother tongue. And so that's kind of what we were trained, is to also not just a translator, but also as a cultural broker. So as an interpreter, we're not just like word for word, but we were also there to help the doctors, non-Filipinos, to understand what the Filipino patients are going through. And that experience kind of just made me more embrace, like, this is a skill and also experience that I have that I can that I can use to help other people. And it's also my own story, my own journey that will also help me empathize to what this, elderly people mostly, having a father who is chronically ill, but also their immigrant experience. They're also coming to, hospital. Hospital is like a big system, navigating that. And then you are in your most vulnerable, like physical, emotional, right, mental state. So I think that experience really showed to me, this is not something you have to, your accent, your language, make sure no sign of it, right? But it's really tell them that this is what you have this. And I think that's also beginning of a movement when, translation was being, a lot of hospitals are investing in that, those services because they really see and have seen how it can improve patient care and patient delivery. So I was very, happy to have that kind of introduction. So, having had that during my college years, so now when I graduated and met this Finnish person who also, has a very strong sense of who he is, and as a Finnish come to America, and for him it's also a little bit different because he came here when he was much older, but we kind of have the same thing, accent, But we were really very proud of who we are. So now that we have children who are inheriting both of our, heritage, we also want to we're passing on to them this heritage. And what we'd also like to pass on to them is this pride that they have to also embrace who they are. But now our children, they're growing up here in the United States. So they're not really growing up in the Philippines or in Finland, but they're just inheriting a heritage, but growing up in a different environment. So in a way, it's really kind of like, they're going to be their own generation, right? So when it came to Bessie Carmichael, now that we have this commitment, we found Bessie Carmichael as really like the perfect place for us to, for our children to grow, because with the Filipino language program, we've also met this, beautiful community of Filipino educators, other Filipino parents who share that same, desire for their children. So, at that time, I was really very happy that program existed. And then when I learned about how this program came about, how the community, the Filipino Education Center started, the history, I was very touched by and very, grateful for all of that, for all of those work that the community leaders, educators, parents have done. And then now for me and my family to be benefiting from that. So my child graduated, at Bessie Carmichael, and then now I have another child there. And just recently, there's been a lot of, with the budget cuts, there's been a lot of attempts and threats to really weaken this Filipino language program. And that's really upset me because I see that how beautiful this program is. It's not only a language, but it's really like it's a community for a young Filipino American to grow. And also having learned how, I think in 2019, they did a study where they found out that Filipinos, middle school students has the highest, suicide ideation in San Francisco. It just made me more, hyper aware of really the importance of that community. Because when you think of the language, there's people behind that, right? People who speak that language. And when you're learning the language, you're also learning the culture. And then I think for my child to really know that she is Filipino, who is growing in America. Because even though, she may not look like whatever they think a Filipino would look like, that's still part of her. And I think it's having been exposed in that, educational environment. And also when you look at Bessie Carmichael, it's part of South of Market, right? This heritage. So, she grew up here. This is her playground, right? She came to different parts of this neighborhood. So it's really not just a school. The school is the neighborhood. It's like a neighborhood school kind of thing. So, and I felt like we benefited so much from this program. And for me to see it being threatened, I felt like it compelled me to make sure that the next generation of young Filipino Americans and also families that will come to this, South of Market, to San Francisco, will enjoy the same benefits that I had. Because my kids are pretty much leaving the system. And so that's really what compelled me. So anything that will strengthen this program even more, or make sure that it will continue to be here for many more years, I felt that anything I can do for that is, for me to also just pay for the work of those who, did the same thing. So when I came here and I had my children, it was there. So that's kind of like something I would like to leave behind in Bessie Carmichael. Yeah. I think nowadays, I'd like to just live each day with a purpose. And, as a parent, I didn't have like this orientation that I'm going to change the world. But I think now I've kind of, my perspective is I just want to make small changes, make like that ripple of change. And I do that by, at Bessie Carmichael, by getting to know parents, creating that relationship with them, and also educating myself about, gaining skills so I can be more effective in, talking to more parents and also mobilizing others to act so we could achieve, with a common purpose. So it's those little things that, if there's something I can do today and then tomorrow, that's, I'll add something to that, another skill, another parent, another relationship. And then also and I think as I'm doing that, I'm also kind of like little by little becoming more confident and just thinking of like, this is more than me. I wouldn't do this for myself, but I would do this for my child. And I would do this for my Filipino community. And I think that's kind of like what really inspires me. If I would do this for myself, I would just like, I would not leave my house. I would be very shy. But if it's something that I could do for a bigger purpose, let's just do it. Yeah.